How it goes, family? Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully, you guys having a great and exceptional day. So, this is my first live stream that I can monetize on. I want to thank everybody, the new and the old people who have supported my YouTube channel, and I really want to get that out there. To finally become monetized now in today's world, it's not an easy thing. And I'm just thankful for this is the first live stream I could actually get super chats and things of that nature. So hey, we're gonna do what we're gonna do, but it's just like I'm very happy about that. Excuse me. All right, so today's usually I only go live like once a month. I haven't been going live as much as I used to. I had the time, but I make sure I'm making the time now. Goal is to go at least live once a week on YouTube and Facebook. I mean, at this point, it's nothing against Facebook, but Facebook isn't keeping live streams anymore as far as data storage. I'm sure it's saving the company money because, hey, that's everything's about money. So that's why I'm not going to knock it. But anyways, so if you are a subscriber, just come subscribe to the YouTube channel. And like I said, opportunity for membership. So if you want to become a member, that's always welcomed as well. Thank you everybody for the cash apps. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for watching. Just thanks for everything, because you don't have to be here. And there's only other places in these YouTube streets and social media streets you can be on. And I'm very grateful for that. So anyways, just wanted to put that out there into the atmosphere. All right, so the title of this live stream is America turning into a modern day plantation? Now, remember, what I'm going to discuss here, I'm not coming at anything from a Democratic perspective, a Republican perspective, a racism perspective. It's purely economic perspective. I don't do Democrats and Republicans. I do checkings and savings. If you don't know that about me now, you will know that about me now. From the DMV area, I think all politicians are full of crap. So if you want to be a supporter of any politician, that's your business, not mine. I'm not ever going to argue over a politician. I want to argue about how, as a grown man, I want to argue about how I can increase my income, increase my value, increase my wealth, increase my health. That's the only things I want to argue with. And I know that's not popular on social media, but I honestly don't care. Not even popular really on YouTube, but I honestly don't care. I want to have discussions and possible debates, not even arguments, debates about how we can increase our income, how we can increase our value, how can we increase our everything that's health, etc. and so forth. Assets, i.e. cryptocurrency, annuities, stocks, bonds, real estate, businesses, assets. I think too many people in the social media world and the video game world have done a great job of getting away from, especially grown men, talking about how they can increase their value instead of they want to outcompete each other in various different aspects, in various different ways. And in the middle of 2025, that has become very old, boring, stale, and stagnated to me. That's just me. So anyways, what today's title is saying is America turning into a modern day plantation. Let's discuss the history of life on the plantation. All right. Now, when I say this, I'm not degrading my ancestors or anything of that nature as being a Black American. I'm definitely not doing that. What I'm saying is the plantation system. We are living in times where more and more people are losing their jobs. We're living in times where a lot of even corporations are trying to utilize AI and various other things and doing more with less. Corporations and governments from federal, state to local, to ensure they can increase their margins, increase their profitability. You're living in a time frame where corporations are making record profits, but that's another story for another day. But we're living in a time where more people are online talking about, I can't find a job, or I'm not making ends meet with my job. And when the gig economy first started, it was great for a lot of people who are retirees. It was great for a lot of people who were parents. Great for a lot of people that just wanted to make extra money. That was the beautiful thing about the gig economy. But in 2025, the gig economy, meaning people who are Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, Grubhub drivers, DoorDash drivers, forgot the other one. That's for the just grocery delivery. But there's so many, it's hard to keep up. But anyways, excuse me. Instacart people. I knew it was going to come to me. Now this is these gigs, as they call them, are so popular to the point because people need it for survival. So it's becoming commonplace now for most Americans to have at least 2 jobs or a side hustle for survival purposes, not for. When I worked 2 to 3 jobs, it was back, and this is back in, I can say this back in the day, 20 years ago, starting out at 2005. One, I was younger. 2, I was doing it to make money and save money. I wasn't even investing my money like that. That didn't come until like 2 to 3 years later. I opened up my own individual retirement account with my credit union, and I bought my first CD and whatnot. So, but anyways, I was, and people, I remember back in the day, back during that time frame, when people were saying to me, well, Larry, you don't have kids, right? I said, no. You don't have a car payment? No. You're not a homeowner? No. You don't have student loan debt? No. They're like, so they would be like, why the hell are you working 2 to 3 jobs? I said, it's very simple. I'm trying to save money. I don't want to really struggle like that. And everybody told me back then, this is mindset is important. Because I was young and naive and didn't realize that, you can't share your hopes and dreams with everybody, because if you make that mistake, then they'll do their best to shut it down with nothing but negativity. And they basically said that, well, you're always going to struggle, so what's the point of you working hard right now? You're young. Go out and have a good time. Back then, the idea of going out to the clubs, I didn't do that till my mid-20s and late 20s and whatnot. My early 20s was all about work. The only fun I had was just, meeting up with somebody that I met online, or just watching Law and Order or watching a movie and whatnot. That was what was considered to be fun for me back then. But anyways, I digress. But yeah, that was considered fun to me back in those days. But I was doing that because, like, because the crazy thing is, most of the people that were working a part-time job like I was, they were in debt up to their ears with car debt because they had the nice cars. I didn't have the nice cars. They was up to their ears in debt because they had to overprice homes. They had to overprice, and they had a bunch of kids. So financially, and these are all these 90% of the people, they were older than me. So I was just like, okay, so 90% of these people were older than me. So therefore, they're working because they need to survive. They're doing this to survive. And the other percentile, they were doing it to just save money because they want to buy a house. They wanted to buy a house. They wanted to pay off some student loan debt or just pay off debts in general. That was the whole purpose of them doing that. But most of the people, they just couldn't, unfortunately, they just could not, understand the fact that I was a young guy who didn't have any kids, who didn't have any student loan debts, who didn't have a mortgage, who didn't have a car payment. Why I was because I even have the older guys like, why aren't you out there chasing women? I'm like, why? By that time, didn't have, that was the generation of, you did social media on your computer. You couldn't do it on your cell phone. But I was like, if I really wanted to talk to somebody, I'd just go online and talk to them. My focus was on money, not on women. My focus is on building, not on chasing. Okay, so it is what it is. But anyways, I digress. But the point of the matter is, that was a time frame where working 2 to 3 jobs was because majority. As long as you didn't have a bunch of kids and outrageous student loan debt, you was doing it to save money and to put yourself in a better position. So with a little bit of sacrifice, you can get ahead financially in this world. And now the little bit of sacrifice is turning into not only working 2 to 3 jobs, but people living in storage facilities, living in their car, or living in a sharing a room or renting a room out in somebody's house. That's where and where it goes into the plantation aspect of it. So boils down to American history. Black Americans built the United States of America, specifically the original colonies and whatnot, i.e. Pennsylvania, New York, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, state where I'm from, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, Kentucky, all that good stuff. So anyways, because West Virginia used to be a part of Virginia, and they actually split during the Civil War. And ironically, West Virginia was on the northern side, and Virginia was on the Confederacy side. But that's where the home of the Confederacy is, my home state in Richmond, Virginia. But anyways, so back to the issue at hand. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, where the quote unquote the slaves were set free, and since we're still in the month of June, shout out to Juneteenth. It was a great celebration. For me, Juneteenth is just recognizing the ancestors and the history of it all. I've been to the city of Galveston, where Juneteenth was basically took place when the Union ship came to let the slaves in Texas know that they were free. And my thing on Juneteenth is helping people out economically. Good information, look out for somebody, buy from their business, support their business, market their business, give somebody a good lead on a job, things of that nature. That's what true Juneteenth means to me, outside of celebrating the ancestors. But anyway, so if you think about after slavery, the majority of the slaves had all the skill sets when it came to a lot of things, because even a lot of slaves didn't just pick cotton and tobacco, but a lot of them were actual carpenters and things of that nature, people that helped make steel. So a lot of the slaves, specifically the slave men, had skills. And then of course the women were cleaning houses, and they picked cotton, they sewed, things of that, picked tobacco all at the same time. So they had the quote unquote the skill set, especially in the southern rural states. But anyways, I digress. So a lot of times, because there was, the lack of education, specifically economic education, a lot of the former slaves, the ones who didn't leave and go up north or go out west during the Western expansion, during the Black migration, from the 1930s into the 1970s, so the Black migration, Black folks from the South wanted to leave the Jim Crow South, and because the only job that they could get is either cleaning people's houses, the rich people of the South's houses, or working on the plantation, which they called the sharecropping plantation. And the main reason, the moral of the story is, if you're still with me, I'm getting to, is that majority of the time, the amount of money that the former descendants of slaves on those plantations, if they stayed on those plantations, they would work, they would get paid, they would 9 times out of 10 be living in the same shacks that they lived in when they were slaves, but they were in the system where sharecropping system, to where they had at that time they had to end up paying to live in their place. They were slaves, they got treated like crap, but they lived there for free, quote unquote, because they didn't get paid to work, but they definitely had quote unquote room and board. Now they got paid crappier wages, because you didn't have this thing called minimum wage back then. And then you had not only that, but then they had to actually pay to stay on the plantation. They had to pay for the food that they ate. They had to pay for the clothing that they got. So, and then to even make it somewhat worse, in certain instances, some but not all, as I always like to quote from Zoe Williams, check his channel out, Zoe What Morning Show. There were certain plantations, they would only pay them in made up money by the plantation. This is a cold game. This is not talked about enough. They paid them in the monetized amount of money that they could only spend on that plantation. So if they wanted to buy food, clothing, or alcohol, or whatever, they gave them like special nickels or whatnot that they could only spend on that plantation. So, and what reminded me of this is by watching the movie Sinners, where there was a part where this one gentleman wanted a drink when he went to the bar of the juke joint that Michael B. Jordan's characters opened up in Mississippi. And the guy's like, he had a certain amount of American money, but then he had the rest of the amount of money he had from the plantation that man worked on. This older man at the time. And I was just like, dang, that's not talked about enough, because a lot of times these people were paid in those nickels. They could not even leave on the plantation or spend money off of that plantation. So financially they were in a stagnated place. And that's why that's why you have a significant more amount of Black people that live in states like Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, and of course to the whole West Coast from Oregon to Washington State, Nevada, California, because a lot of those places, heck, even parts of New Mexico and Colorado, because a lot of, during the Black migration, a lot of times people got, saved up enough money to get themselves a train ride to whatever city that they were going to, or because once the train was implemented and invented, that's when more people were able to get around. But anyways, then you had the ones that were actually that would just, because Smokey Robinson told this story about his dad, how his dad left the Deep South. His dad ended up killing a white man, and his dad got on a train. A lot of times back then, people would just hitch a ride on a train, and illegally, but it's not like you had that many law enforcement back then compared to now. And they would just take a train wherever the train may take them. And I believe the train took his dad to Detroit or Chicago. I think it was Detroit. So anyways, and moral of the story is, the reason why I went into this story is just because you have a lot of people now financially, they're barely scraping by. In America, you have the highest credit card debts, and the Jim Crow sharecropping plantation, this is before actual just regular plantation, when you had regular slaves, is where the slaves couldn't leave because they were actually people's property. And at this point, people are stagnated in the sense like the Jim Crow era, in a sense, not 100%, but in a sense, I'm just using this as an example, is because a lot of people financially can't go anywhere because they're so up to their ears in debt. Okay, they're up to their freaking ears in debt, and the opportunity and the possibility of being able to move forward is becoming less and less. And that's why the era of a lot more Americans saying, you know what, I'm just going to leave the United States, not because they hate America, it's just because they can't financially afford to live here unless because it's going to get to the point where a lot of people are going to have to be like certain immigrants, are just going to have to live in houses 5 to 10 people, or they're going to have to move to a smaller rural town where it's much more cheaper. And I mean, that's looking like the best options for everyday regular working people. I mean, this is why I like the idea of remote work, because if you can live wherever you want to live, you can move to another country. That means you can move to a smaller town, from a financial standpoint, because I've had this channel seriously since 2018. And the way that the U.S. economy has been for like the last 2 years now, it's not even just 2025. I think it's just intensified in 2025. But since last year, 2024, people's wages have been stagnated. The inflation has been going up, and people can't afford to buy a car. People can't afford to buy homes. It's to the point now, even Las Vegas, places like Las Vegas, and I'm sure soon other vacation destinations around this great nation, because I do love America, will have to give more incentives for people to come. That's where we're at right now. People want to have more incentives to go places, And that was my thing. And that's just the way it is right now. What's up, brother? Hey, what's up, King? How you doing, man? Where you at right now? Are you down in Dominican Republic, or are you down in Colombia, man? It's been a long time, man. I hope all is well with you. You've always been a great contributor to the channel, so that's why I said I had to send you nothing but love. But yep, he's in Colombia. See, there it is. And he just makes my point right there. How long have you been in Colombia now, man? He just makes my point. He left America a while ago, and now he's in Colombia. And I know his cost of living has been cut tremendously. He's what they consider expat. And he just makes my point right there. He's in Colombia, and your cost of living, if you're making decent American money, if you're making 50 grand, $40,000 to $50,000, and you live in a country like Colombia, Dominican Republic, if you live even in freaking Ghana, possibly East Africa, I'll say East or West Africa. If you're making that amount of money in American dollars, or even, westernized dollars in Europe or whatnot, you're going to live a pretty decent life. And once again, I rest my case. He says it's been almost 5 years he's been living in Colombia. He's lived off of $1,000 a month living in Colombia. See what I'm saying? That is unheard of anywhere in the United States nowadays. He says to live like a king, you need $2,000 a month. Okay, I rest my case. I think the only place in America that's left that you can live decent for, let's just go with $2,000 a month. It's probably going to be in the #1 boring state in the United States of America. And I remember finding this out one day when I was bored during the pandemic. And that state is Wyoming. It's considered the #1 most boring state, or West Virginia, because these states had the least amount of nothing going on. They had the least amount of flights happening. I think the state of Wyoming only has up to 3 Walmarts in the whole state. So yeah, this man just made my case. He says he lives off of $1,000, and to live like a king, you need to live off of $2,000 a month. So I rest my case on this one, man. It's just like, this is where we're at, unfortunately, and people are becoming more and more stagnated. The amount of videos I've seen online to where on various different social media platforms where people are living in their cars, living in storage units. Now, a lot of people even living in tents and living in the woods and whatnot, just so that they can save money, or just because they have no other choice. And this is why I find myself to be more grateful about my life and whatnot, even if I don't particularly care about being where I live at right now. It's just because it could be so much worse, straight up and down. It could be so much worse, What did he say? He said, I don't think I would ever live back in America. I feel free living outside the United States. I like that. Thinking about moving to Thailand in 2026. Rent there is $500 a month. I've heard that. A lot of expats are going to Thailand because the cost of living is 10 times cheaper. And here's the thing. And once again, I'm not bashing the United States, but here's the thing. Quality of life matters. I don't care what country you live in. So if your quality of life is better living in Thailand, if your quality of life is better living in Colombia, Ghana, Dominican Republic, Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, I can't knock it, man. It's like, if you're happier, then that's all that matters. A lot of Americans live in Mexico. People don't even realize that. Specifically Mexico City, the capital. He says $500 a month with the same type of apartment you would get in Fairfax and Tyson's or any other nice area. So you know what I mean? And he's talking about Northern Virginia, where the DMV area where we're from. You're not gonna, you can't even get a room for $500 a month in the DMV area. Okay, a couple of years ago you could, but you can't even get a room for that amount of money. You do a lot in the chat room, man. You should come online and talk. Shoot. I would suggest everyone who's watching your videos to start an online business and get the hell out of the United States. I'm not mad at that. Because my mindset is this, man. It's like, it's all about quality of life. It's all about quality of life. He is right. He is speaking some serious game. If you want to, man, put your business in the chat, brother. You've always supported my channel, so I don't mind supporting you. But yeah, man, it's like, if you got a website, put it in the chat and I'll put it up. But he's telling the truth. He's like, you have to, my mindset is this, it's all about, depends on what you want out of life. But if you have a lifestyle to where you're not saving any money from 2 levels as a working person or business owner, if you're not saving money, and I don't care what country you live in when I say this, if you're not saving money to the point where you're putting money away in your bank account, one, and if you're putting money in your investments, number 2, that's increasingly growing in value, i.e. business, cryptocurrency, stocks, bonds, annuities, real estate, whatever the case may be, then you're going to be financially screwed. And I've been saying this for 5 years now. And now the chickens have come home to roost for a lot of people because of inflation. That's the thing. The chickens have come home to roost because of inflation. And now you have a generation of people who can barely scrape by. You got a generation of people that, like I said, you're having to work 2 jobs out of necessity, 2 or 3 jobs out of necessity. And we have the first time in America that more and more people do not want to, in a sense of becoming like Japan, do not want to have kids because they can't afford them. You know, food stamps have gotten taken away. Section 8 housing has been taken away. You know, whether who's in the White House, governor's house, or mayor's house, you know, the economy's bad. You know, and I can go into one that this is what threw me off. JetBlue, one of the cheapest airlines out there, cancels all services to major vacation destinations. This came out as of June 24th. Okay, a couple of days ago. This messed me up because this is how a desperate or companies that aren't out of necessity, i.e. the travel industry, is getting for people to fly. Southwest is taking such a loss, shout out to Southwest Airlines, that they're giving people more and more incentives to try to fly with them by giving a free companion pass to fly with you. What is it? If you get a credit card with them, you get, you know, free bag check-in and whatnot. They're coming up with all these sales because people can't afford to fly like that. Like I said, Vegas, the incentive with Las Vegas. They, you know, well, people, they're getting rid of resort fees. They're getting rid of the parking fees. They're listening to, they're giving people comps. Like when I was in Vegas a month ago, got a drinking fee. I mean, got $100 for free drinks, $100 to gamble, $100 for food. Why? Because everything is so overpriced. Straight up and down. But anyways, JetBlue has announced by September 2nd, it will have withdrawn all services to Miami, which Miami really, that is a major vacation destination. This major vacation destination is currently served by one to two daily JetBlue flights from Boston. However, the carrier admitted that the route is being axed because it has become unprofitable. JetBlue will still serve Florida through with its flights to Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach from multiple destinations, including Boston, Philadelphia, New York, and Los Angeles. The airline said in a statement, "We continually evaluate how our network is performing and make changes as needed." I mean, because the same thing happened with Southwest. They still go to Houston, but they used to go to Hobby Airport and go to Bush Continental Airport. Now they only go to Hobby Airport, which I hate. I mean, I don't hate Hobby Airport, but I'd rather go to Bush Airport because everything I do, as far as the fun I have and whatnot, is on that side of Houston where Bush Airport is at. So, but you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, I'll leave it at that. But anyways, you know, it's like I said, it's real in the field when it comes down to that. You know, it's like, and like I said, more and more plants have shut down. It's taking people up to 3 to 5 months to get a new job. You know, that's another thing to take into consideration. You know, it's just like, it's insane, you know, where we're at right now. And who knows what the future holds, you know, for a lot of regular, everyday working people. You know, that's the thing. And this one article that came out back in May, it's talking about Americans going into debt to buy groceries. This weekend alone, I'm gonna put the number out there. This weekend alone, what I've spent on groceries. Okay, yesterday it was $117. Today it was basically $80. I spent on groceries today. So I literally spent almost $200 on groceries. And we're talking about for myself, not a significant other, not for kids, my mother effing self. I'm not going to cuss, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. And every time I go to the grocery store and I see people with kids, I'm such a nosy person in this aspect. If they're in front of me, I'm going to listen to I'm going to look at the bill that comes up on the screen. And the look on, especially if it's a mother and whatnot, the look on their faces, and they're like, well, what about all the coupons and whatnot? And they're like, yeah, that's the bill with the coupons. And a lot of times they argue with, oh, what? I thought this was on sale. And it's not like, because that's how bad it is, especially if you're buying meats and whatnot. Crazy in the field. So this is why I understand why certain people are like, yeah, I don't want to have kids because I can't afford. I can barely afford to take care of myself. It says Americans have been grappling with higher food costs since 2021. So that's when the inflation from all the spending, the stimulus spending kicked in. To get relief, some are turning to credit cards, buy now, pay later, which is a beautiful program that I utilize, but I actually pay them back because companies like Klarna have basically almost declared bankruptcy or have declared bankruptcy because people haven't paid them back. Or payday loans. But those balances can be difficult to pay down due to higher cost of living. Luckily, for me, when it comes to Klarna, which is the buy now, pay later, I always put it on my credit card, and it's usually never anything more than $500, which I know I can pay off. You know, it's like I have a limit when I go gambling. I'm not going to gamble no more than $60 at the low end, $100 at the high end, and that's it. So it's like it's all about, you know, somewhat self-control and things of that nature. But the point is, a lot of people are having to do this out of necessity. When I use Klarna, it's not for necessity. It's Airbnb. I didn't even know what it was until it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and they was like, oh, you can pay later with this thing. Like certain things you buy on Amazon, you can pay later. You know, do the buy now, pay later thing with no interest. So I'm just like, okay, I'm paying this over time. I was going to pay this up front anyways. I'm paying this over time and there's no interest. But still, I don't see the issue with it, you know. And then when I get the bill slowly but surely on my credit card, so therefore I'm just paying it off. Boom, boom, boom. It's good for my credit. I get the points if it's airline credit card, or I get the points. I get cashback reward points and whatnot if it's like an American Express or Citibank card. So it's a beautiful thing. Many shoppers, and speaking before I go forward, if you want to, the links are in the description. If you want to join American Express, if you want to enjoy air miles and whatnot, links are in the description for the various air miles. With United Airlines, you get 2 free lounge passes. And if you've ever flown before, being able to hang out in the lounge is a beautiful thing. You get the, get the cashback rewards and whatnot with American Express. That's why having a good credit score is one of the most important things, especially in 2025. Having a good credit score is one of the most important things in 2025. So many people be looking at and worrying about other things that have nothing to do with increasing their income, increasing their value, even increasing their access to capital. But I'll leave that alone. But anyways, many shoppers were shocked by what they pay at the grocery store checkout. Food prices shot up amid broader inflation in recent years and remain high for many staples. As consumers struggle with elevated food costs that can lead to unpaid debt balances, many families dipped into their savings or turned to credit cards, buy now, pay later installment programs, or payday loans to pay for groceries in 2023. So that increased, and these companies made a lot more money, intensified in 2023. Although those payment methods can be lifelong, they may also lead to financial instability. And more people probably going to end up declaring bankruptcy. That's why so many restaurants and stores are closing, because you know, places are getting the message that if people don't really need your stuff or your services, they're not going to call you. They're not going to go to you. That's just one of those things at the end of the day. Okay? That's just one of those things. So, and we're just going to have to see what happens from there. I mean, this is, luckily, like I said, I've noticed a lot of grocery stores, like I'll say a Food Line, has done a good job with giving cashback rewards. If you shop there enough, not only just getting the digital coupons, but you get cashback rewards. Stores like Dollar General is doing the same thing. Like when I went today, I had $4.75 of Dollar General cash that I was able to use. And then plus, if you shop at Dollar General on a Saturday and you buy enough products over $25, you get $5 off. So I was able to save $9.75 because of utilizing those two things. This is where we're at. And I make a decent living. You know, between my job and between my businesses and whatnot, I make a decent living, but this is where we're at. And that's why I'm looking at people like, yeah, we're in a recession, so you don't need to be flossing like that. You know, that's why even when I go out of town, I don't even really go to the bar like that. And if I do, I got a 3-drink limit because I'm like, I can go to the freaking liquor store and buy what I'm going to pay for that one drink. I could have multiple drinks by buying a bottle from a liquor store. Why would I want to go to a bar? Like, bars are going to be seriously hit, or they are getting seriously hit because it's too expensive to be going to a bar getting your drink on. If you really like to get your drink on, do it at home. That's my model in 2025. It ain't that serious anymore. So, but I leave it at that. And I get it, to be in the atmosphere is more fun. But like when I was in Vegas, that was worth having a good time and getting my drink on or whatnot. When I was in Phoenix, Los Angeles, that was worth it. Virginia, who cares? Ain't nothing special happening here. But anyways, and since I'm from Virginia, I can say whatever the hell I want to say about Virginia, and I'll leave it at that. But anyways, I digress. All right, so the next article, this is last but definitely not least, says nearly half of the United States households can't afford a $250,000 home, and this is considered a good price, $250,000. Okay, so that's considered a good price, but I digress. Even because this article came out last year in 2024, but last year $250 was a good price for a home. But this article is talking about how most Americans can't even afford that amount for a home. NHB has updated its housing affordable graphs for 2023, and NHB is the National Association for Home Builders, NAHB. And the data shows that 66.6 million households, 49% out of a total of 134.9 million, are unable to afford a $250,000 home. The graph is based on the conventional underwriting standards that assume that the cost of mortgage, property taxes, and property insurance should not exceed 28% of household incomes. Before I go forward, remember, inflation has hit local county governments and it's hit insurance companies. Therefore, people's homeowners insurance and personal property taxes have gone up nationwide. All right. Anyways, so therefore, if you have a mortgage, your mortgage has gone up. Or if you don't have a mortgage, you still got to pay more a year for your personal property taxes and your home insurance. So based on this methodology, economists have calculated how many households have enough income to afford a home at various price thresholds. All right. So when it boils down to it, all right, 40 million can afford houses at the max at 150. 26.1 million can afford the max at 250. 13 million can afford the max at $400,000. 11 million can afford at the max of 500,000. 600,000, 7.9 million can afford it. At 7K, 5.5 million can afford it. And at 850, 5.2 can afford it. And at 1 million, 4.1 million can afford it. And at 1.6 million, 2.9 million can afford it. And at 1.6 million plus, 2.8 million can afford it. All right. So with that being said, because it's ironic, my mother's talking about selling the house that I grew up in for her retirement package. And she was talking to her real estate friend / property manager for a rental property. And the guy's like, yeah, she'll have no issue selling her house because she's not going to sell it at $500,000 or more. But the biggest problem that people in the DMV area where people make a good living, 6 figures, is so common. They're having the hardest time in Northern Virginia, one of the richest parts of the United States of America, having the hardest time selling homes that cost $500,000 or more. Why? Pray tell. I know why, because people can't freaking afford a house that costs $500,000 anymore. Or they don't want a house that costs that much money. Even if they could afford it, because they got kids, especially if it's like a single family home and people have a family, they're going to do the numbers and like, yeah, I can't afford to pay $25,000 to $300,000 a month. With me having a car payment, most likely, me having kids, most likely, me having student loans, most likely, me having already high credit card debt, most likely. Get the point I'm getting at. All right? You get the point I'm getting at. I'm so glad I stocked up on my water. Excuse me. I always get, when I do these lives, my cotton mouth is always on high. You think I've been drinking alcohol all day or smoking weed all day, and I haven't done none of that. It's been a very relaxing day outside of getting certain things done. But this is definitely one of those situations when I was talking about people working on their credit, owning businesses, owning assets, and I was never giving out financial advice. I was talking about the one-on-one aspects of these things. A lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. I'm not worried financially now just because I did the things that I said that I preached about for all these years. I talked about increasing your income. I've worked on doing that. I've talked about increasing your value. I've worked on doing that. I've talked about buying assets. I've done that, i.e., cryptocurrencies, stocks, bonds, real estate. And I have other assets I'm going to be working on. That's why I'm not going to be traveling as much, and that's why I'm not really worried about having too much fun right now, because I'm worried about getting things together financially. Speaking of which, we'll be getting back into the travel business. So if I do not sign up this weekend, I will be signing up next weekend, and I most likely will have my my business partner, had her on the channel before. Have her and her husband on there, and they can tell more about the travel business, as I will be going through the training process and things of that nature. And hey, we're about doing business in 2025. So if you're, I got a sign on my desk and it says, if your friends aren't talking about money, you're a part of a nonprofit corporation. A job stands for just over broke if you don't know how to make money outside of it. I've been saying this for years, and now the chickens have come home to roost of 2025, and everybody's losing their freaking financial mind because they can't afford it. So vacations are down, tourism people coming to America is down. For most people, they're going to be taking a vacation. It's probably just going to be a road trip, especially people with families. Because I tell you, when I was at the airport, I saw less and less people with families there. Because I can only imagine. Like I said, the only reason why I have trips coming up in the future is just because there was a sale and because I had air miles. That's it. I will not, unless it's the right deal or I got enough miles and whatnot, I will not be traveling like that in the future, because the cost of living is ridiculous. And with people like that not being able to travel like that hurts the airline industry, hurts the hotel business, hurts the Airbnb business, that hurts rental car business, that hurts the local economies that have less people coming to shop at the local and big businesses. And that hurts the tax base of those cities and states and those countries, because they're not able to tax the people coming to buy the goods and services and whatnot. That is trickle down economics, and that's not looking too good right now. But what do I know? I'm just a guy that just likes to talk about certain things. I'm not going to act like I know everything. I'm not going to act, because there's always questions. There's always, even with all this technology, every day is always, and I mean always, an opportunity to learn something. Okay? And I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything. And if most people were like that, I think this would be a better world. And I speak on that. I stand on that. I'm speaking on that. It is what it is. Okay? Real talk. So, but yeah, it's going to get interesting around here. Thanks for the super chats. I finally got some super chats for the first time. It's an amazing feeling. It's great to finally be getting something out of this, because I've been very passionate about doing this for a long time, and I'm just glad that things are actually working out for a change. So it's all good. Do the great thief free things, family. Like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. Make money moves. You're going to live like a fool. Don't forget to check out the online store. If you want to become a member, opportunities are out there. If you want to even come on the channel and talk about a specific subject matter, I just remembered I need to link up with one of my former co-workers, Michael Alcantara, and see what his schedule is. And I'm going to do that right after I get off of here, so I do not forget. But talk about his business and talk about his book. Yeah, that's what I need to do. Yeah, so I need to do that. All right, so just like I said, just thinking about that. Want to start interviewing people again. Maybe have my boy Chris come on here. Maybe have Michael Macklin come on here. Maybe have buddy Adrian Gonzalez come on there. We'll see what happens. We'll go from there. But we're gonna keep this train moving, as they say. That's all I got to say about that. But anyways, hopefully you guys have a great and exceptional evening. All that good stuff. And we're gonna make it do what it do, as they say. But yeah, let me do this right now while I'm online. Michael Alcantara, there he is. Cool. It's been a month in the making. So yeah, gonna start having more guests up on the program, and all that good stuff. So that's what it is. So I'm out. make money moves, or you're gonna live like a fool. I hope you all have a great evening. We did it. It's all good. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Larry's Anything Goes. Hopefully, you're having a great day. If you've been watching Larry's Anything Goes programming, you know that we are not only providing great financial intelligence content as much as possible by interviewing other financial professionals, professionals in the travel industry, real estate industry, etc., and so forth, but we provide various services when it comes to specific products that we sell, from anything that you would actually find on Amazon or actually at Walmart, etc., and so forth. And we are actually providing specific products due to today's current crisis and whatnot to ensure that we provide the right services and products that you need at a reasonable price when it comes to medical face masks, when it comes to hand sanitizer, and when it comes to latex gloves and things of that nature, and etc., and so forth, toilet paper, paper towels. But we have what you need. Also, family, don't forget that Larry's Anything Goes is a part of an affiliate marketing network known as Gold Standard Partners, where you have the opportunity to buy cryptocurrency and allow others to invest with you as becoming an affiliate marketing partner. And obviously, if they purchase a package with the program, you're able to make money off their package purchases and make money off of their crypto purchases and things of that nature. If you want to join, please follow the links in the description, and I'll give you a call as soon as you sign up and purchase a package, and we'll go from there. But definitely, it's all about the best way to make money moves is to have currency with one another and to ensure that currency is always being spoken of on all levels, so it benefits everyone and not just one specific person. That's a lot of things that people forget about. So think about joining the program, and we'll be able to go from there. But if not, either way, it's always appreciated. And thank you for watching, and hopefully you guys have a great day and continuously make money moves so you don't live like a fool. Take care. As you can see, with our various products, we have our financial apparel, as you see, wearing There's Anything Goes t-shirt, financial intelligence is sexy, face masks, latex gloves, things of that nature, to obviously ensure the safety of you and your family all at the same time. We want to ensure that you get the best products and see the actual products that we're actually providing for you, and giving you another view of not only the shirts and the medical masks, but actually another view of actual latex gloves and the actual hand sanitizer. Because one thing we've learned throughout this unfortunate crisis is that we have to take more precautionary measures to ensure not only the safety for ourselves, but for our families. And having a great pair of hand sanitizers, latex gloves, and medical face masks will ensure that safety. And with all that being said, hopefully you guys will check out our online store. We have the various products that you see here. With a couple of clicks, especially if you're paying via PayPal, it makes life that much easier for you to purchase our various products, especially during this unfortunate situation. You see the apparel from Larry's Anything Goes. We have the medical products when it comes to hand sanitizer, latex gloves, medical face masks, things of that nature, and various other products. So please check out Larry's Anything Goes. Support small local businesses. We greatly appreciate it, and hopefully that you have a good day.
Michael, now.